Hello and welcome to our presentation of Norby Knight and his adventures in technology. So I am Annicka Rabida and I am an instructional technologist at St. Norbert College.
I'm Donny Bouressa and I am the service desk team lead at SNC.
So some tools we'll go into depth later, but just a brief overview. We have Zoom on the list. Our college has a license to Zoom. We have some Google products, as we also are Google admins on our campus. And then there are some unique ones that we will also get into depth later.
So our ITS department was approached by the Student Engagement Office to come up with a presentation for the incoming freshmen during our week of welcome that we have. We were asked to have an interactive session that would keep students engaged for the entire time slot. We had 3 groups of students that we were giving a presentation to that would last about 45 minutes. So coming up with something that would keep them engaged the entire time was quite a challenge. So we're going to talk about our process and what we did to prepare for that step. So our process consisted of 6 main steps, the first of which was workshopping ideas during our divisional meetings. We use Zoom for our divisional meetings because we have a lot of team members who are still working remotely, and this was actually kind of helpful because we were able to use the breakout rooms function in Zoom. The breakout rooms gave us the ability to kind of break down into 3 or 4 people and come up with ideas on how we wanted to keep the students engaged during this presentation. Someone had come up with the idea to have a create your own adventure story, and it was such a unique way and a unique idea to keep students engaged and have them be able to choose, the progression of the story that we just had to go with it. During another one of our team meetings, we had used these breakout rooms again to kind of come up with problems and possible outcomes for each of these problems. And we came up with a bunch of them that we wanted to present to these students and then, display the choices that they were going to have. So step 2 was just trying to create some teachable moments for these students. Anything that would kind of come up in their day-to-day lives at SNC, things that they might have questions about that we could kind of present early on so that they'd be informed, before anything might happen. We used a large conference room that we have, and the walls in there actually serve as whiteboards. They have a paint coating on them that you're able to write on with dry erase markers, and it's a super neat tool to have available, especially in our large conference room, because we're able to collaborate and kind of draw and write out ideas in this shared workspace. So we had utilized that to kind of just make notes of like, hey, we want to talk about this, or we want to talk about this, and we'll kind of show. We have some pictures where you can kind of see some of these ideas that we wrote out. We had also used Google Docs. Being a Google campus, we have access to the entire G Suite, and having Docs available once we kind of narrowed down the ideas we wanted to use was nice to be able to share to the entire division. They were able to kind of make notes, give us feedback on what ideas they liked and what ideas they didn't, as well as some things they really wanted us to highlight. So having that give and take between our entire division was really helpful in this step. So here you can see the actual teachable moments that we had come up with, broken down into info security, service desk, and academic tech. This was the final part of our step 2 on finalizing the teachable moments. Step 3 in our process was to fully develop the story and kind of finalize where we wanted this presentation to go. We took a half-day brainstorming session where we brought in donuts, ordered lunch, and kind of took the entire morning to finalize this step. We utilized our whiteboard walls again here in our big conference room so that we could draw out and kind of visualize where we wanted this story to go. We started with a basic timeline, so we wanted it to be like a Saturday and a Sunday, and then going into the first day of classes of kind of what these students might experience during their first weekend here. So once we had the basic timeline down, we had kind of fine-tuned it into this more linear story where we had, problem A broke into 3 choices and where those choices would kind of go. Using the whiteboard walls here was super useful to kind of label each choice and each path so that it was easier to kind of finalize the final presentation and when we're ultimately presenting it to these students. Annicka is going to take over from here and kind of break down the final 3 steps of our process.
So the 4th step in our process was to actually take photos of Norby Night to help visualize each possible event that could happen in our adventure story. So the first thing that we used was our mascot, which we could rent out. Our mascot at St. Norbert College is the lovely Norby Night. So we had someone dress up as Norby Night so we could help visualize the story. So another tool we used was, before we mentioned that we used Google Docs for the script. Well, we utilized, specifically for the photography planning, we utilized the comments feature so that at each header of each point in the story, we could have someone that was planning the shots make the comments for then the other person, who happened to be me, that was photographing everything, knew exactly what to photograph. And here are some lovely photographs that I will show you, just some snippets. This is one of Norby in a hammock. This one depicts him using our printing system, swiping his ID card. And then we even got Norby visiting our service desk, like we encourage a lot of our students to do if they need tech help. Now that we had our presentation together, the next step was to rehearse it. So what we did was we went into one of our conference room and utilized the screen sharing feature to have the presentation up and then have everyone involved in the presentation sort of run through potential things. Even though when we gave the presentation, since it was Choose Your Own Adventure, there were different parts of the story that could be different, but it did have an overall arching same concepts that we were teaching. So now that we've covered sort of the process leading up to the final presentation, I will actually break down our final product and what we used for that. So the first thing that we utilized was Google Slides because it had that collaborative aspect. So, you know, me as the photographer, I could add my photos while another coworker could add the, you know, the details behind the presentation so it flowed correctly and all of that. Another thing that we utilized was Zoom because one of our presenters was actually remote. So our director of information security works remotely, but we wanted to have him here as, you know, the set of teachable moments that we had. There was a section for security. So we brought up Zoom and we brought him on a Zoom call so he could actually partake in the presentation. And sort of the way we went between the two is when we were showing our screen, we had our Google Slides in a full screen window, and then we also had the Zoom call in a full screen window so we could just swip between the two when he needed to talk. So here is just a little picture of it, just so you can kind of see how he was presented when we had him up in the Zoom call. So I have some more pictures I'll show later. So one of the unique tools that I briefly mentioned in the beginning was a catch box. So what this is, pictured in this picture on the screen here, it's a portable microphone that allowed us to have audience participation and actually allow, you know, when the audience members answered something, everyone in the room could hear it because we presented this in a large theater. It's a little mesh box and you can toss it around and it doesn't get damaged and it works very well. In our videos that we will show later, you'll be able to actually see it in action. And then along with this, as we're throwing around this microphone, I don't know if you can tell in the picture, but Chrissy has a bag on with food prizes. So that was another sort of encouragement that we had for the students to, you know, ask questions, partake in Norby's story. We had popcorn and mac and cheese. And then sort of a unique aspect that we brought into this presentation was sort of the set pieces. So here pictured, we had just, you know, one of our chairs from the lobby, we brought it in and we actually made a little book. So it looked like Neil, who is pictured here, is reading from a storybook. And this sort of created a dynamic presentation. So we had our director on Zoom, we had the 2 other people presenting at the podium, we had Neil in the center of the stage reading the story, And then we had 2 additional coworkers in the audience with the catch box and giving out, food and prizes to sort of give a dynamic presentation so students weren't focused on one area the entire time, but they also had the ability to, focus in on different areas to keep their attention. So now here are just some still images from the actual presentation. So here were our 2 folks that were at the podium, one of them which is Donny, answering questions and sort of popcorning information into the story as it was relevant. And then here is a close-up of Alan, our Director of Information Security. And another thing to note is we all, to create a uniform look, we wore our lime green shirts, but Alan really wanted to dress up, so since he is a former CIA operative, he actually used the Zoom background feature, put it in the CIA lobby, and dressed up as a CIA agent, which was fun and entertaining for the students. They got a good laugh about it. So now it's time for the presentation of actual clips from when we gave it to students. So I hope you enjoy.
Norby Knight and his adventures in technology. Books, check. Shower caddy, check. Beds lofted, check. Obligatory move-in photo, check. Norby, an incoming first-year student, can hardly wait to begin his first day of classes as a Green Knight. The move-in went well, and Norby and his roommate are getting settled. Norby is putting his belongings into his desk and finds a Post-it with some writing. There's some words and numbers on it that don't really fit together. The note reads, June 02, go pack go. Could this have been a room the Packers stayed in during training camp, wonders Norby, or maybe it's an old password. Norby wondered what to do. Should he, A, find who lived there last year to hack their account, B, shred the Post-it note and throw it away, or C, recognize the great idea and start writing his own passwords down on Post-it notes? Who would like to make the first choice?
All right, what do we have? A,
we got a hit
B,
down
or
over there.
C.
Or over there.
All right. NASA. Here you go.
B.
B, shred the Post-it and throw it away. B it is.
Question for you, what do you think? There's only one right answer.
He took the popcorn, ladies and gentlemen. Norby remembers that when he registered his computer on the network, he agreed to the acceptable use policy. Remembering that trying to tamper with someone else's account is a violation, he tears up the Post-it into little bits and throws it away. Better safe than sorry, says Norby. So what is the acceptable use policy?
Yeah, so our acceptable use policy is something that everybody you probably saw it when you were registering your devices within the past few days while you guys were moving in. But what it's saying is that you're not going to do anything illegal while using our network. It's a lot of guidelines saying you're not going to hack into someone else's account, you're not going to illegally share files, stuff like that. It's pretty straightforward. Just don't do anything illegal while you're here.
The next day, Norby is hanging out with his friends at the caf and gets a text from his parents. Love you and miss you, Norby. Be sure to send us your login for Nightline. Norby's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Knight, couldn't wait to hear how things were going. Wanting Norby to succeed, they would like him to keep them informed about his academic progress, as well as to make it easier for them to provide money in his account, pay for textbooks, etc., etc. Money in my account, thinks Norby. This seems like a great idea. So, should he either text his parents his login ID and password so they can have access to his account, or use a thing that he'd heard of called proxy access, look into it and see what he can do with it? What should we do?
You and then
What do I have to choose?
Either A or B.
A.
A. All right.
Mac and cheese.
All right. So Norby's going to text his parents his login ID and password so they have access to his account. Norby replies to the text message with his credentials and thinks to himself, well, that was easy, eagerly awaiting the extra cash that will appear on his custom cash account. Norby moves on with his day. Later that evening, he gets a call from his mom, who logged into his account to add the money. She had noticed that he hadn't responded to one of his professor's emails, and it seemed like something important, so she promptly replied on his behalf. Realized that Norby really screwed up by sharing his credentials with his parents, he resets his password at snc.edu/pw. Hey, Alan, should you ever share your login credentials with anybody?
That would be a bad idea. Nobody's going to regret that decision, for sure.
Why is that?
The reason is, once someone has your credentials, they could be you as far as the network security controls go, and they could do crazy things like withdraw you from all your courses or transfer, basically spend all the money in your account and basically ruin the rest of your life. So try not to share your credentials.
Norby chooses Luna as his first location and spots a table in the middle of the brick-walled room, surrounded by the friendly faces of the baristas behind the coffee bar and the blank stares of strangers sipping their chais, lattes, and steamers. Norby has been working for hours on his assignment to create his digital profile, chain-drinking caramel espressos along the way. Norby has been checking to ensure that he's been editing the document that his class group has stored in the Google Workspace drive. He peers over the top of his laptop to lock onto a pair of shifty, evasive eyes. Norby, always being aware of his surroundings, notes this unknown character's interest in him. Just then, the call of nature strikes and he must go to the bathroom. So what should Norby do? Should he A, abandon physical control of his device and walk away? B, lock his laptop and ask a trusted person to keep an eye on it? Or C, leave his laptop unlocked but ask someone sitting nearby to watch it?
A.
Okay. Norby stands up, removes his blue light glasses as cool as he can, and walks away from his open, unlocked laptop and his brand new iPhone 13 and heads to the bathroom, giving a confident nod to the suspicious stranger with whom he'd locked eyes with just moments before as he heads towards the bathroom. Norby is only gone for a few minutes, returning to his table to find his devices missing, his laptop, phone, and even his blue light glasses gone. Norby stands stunned, trying to process what just happened and what he should do next. Norby notices that the stranger is no longer in the coffee shop. Norby sheepishly walks over to Sarah, the friendly-eyed barista that he sort of knows, and asks her to call the police so that she can report the theft of his devices. So Alan, what would you say to this?
I'd say Norby has some explaining to do. He has lost his ability to communicate and finish his homework, and he's going to have a whole bunch of cleanup to do, and of course starting with the reporting to the theft to the police, and then ultimately, since it was unlocked when he walked away, he'll have to come to the service desk in person because he no longer has a phone, can't call there, and he's going to have to report that he's lost his device, and that he might need to immediately reset or have the service desk reset all of his passwords, assuming that whoever took the laptop will now have access to not only his email, but also his Google Workspace Drive and anything else that might have been open when he lost the laptop.
So, what happens next? It was not a good first week for Norby. It's a rough day. That was probably the darkest ending I think we had.
Thanks for watching our presentation.
If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us via email with our emails that are on the screen now.